In this section on our series on the rapture, we're going to look at who the restrainer is. Something restrains the coming of the Antichrist. And it's actually pretty easy to figure out. Let's go to eSword and look at the verse that I'm referring to. Here is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and let's just look at verses 6 and 7. This is from the New King James. It says, "And now you know what is restraining, that he may be revealed in his own time." Something is restraining the coming of the Antichrist. Verse 7, it says, "For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains will do so until he's taken out of the way." He or it or they or something is taken out of the way. And we're going to see in a second that the word for he actually can be he, she, or it. It depends on the context. So let's look at that real quick. If we go to our TR, and this is a great thing to have in eSword where you can look at the Greek grammar and study these kind of things. So if we go to verse 7 and just look down here, the who is the one restraining, and it's actually this word here, which is who, he or who, restrains at present. So at present, something or someone is restraining the Antichrist. And it does that until it says, out of the midst, which is right here, out of the midst, he be gone. So something is doing this. And this is a phrase, out of the midst. And that is an idiom, because if you're not told what the subject or object is, who or what is coming out of the midst of what? And so you have to ask that. And if you're not being told, then you know it's an idiom you were supposed to know from a long time ago. So let's look at a few other verses just to see how they translate this particular verse. This is from the Syriac. "And now you know what hinders or restrains him until it shall be taken out of the midst." It's another phrase. If we go to the modern King James, same thing. Something is holding back the Antichrist until it comes out of the midst. So it comes out of the midst. What is it, and out of the midst of what? And here's the literal version. Same thing. Something is holding back the Antichrist, and that continues to do so until it comes out of the midst. So what is this phrase, and what does it mean? Well, let's go ahead and look at some Dead Sea Scrolls, some church fathers to try to get the meaning of it, and it's actually not that hard to see. So let me pull this up here. What is out of the midst? Well, as we've just seen, the mystery of lawlessness, which is the Antichrist, is working. Only he is holding back now. The Lord's holding all this back until it comes out of the midst. So what is it? If we look at the ancient book of Enoch, which is a Dead Sea Scroll, it talks about the time Enoch was translated. We see this in Genesis and in Jude about Enoch simply not being, he was not, for God took him. So he was raptured or changed without seeing death. Now this is from that story, this particular version from the book of Enoch. It says, he was caught up on chariots of the Spirit, sounds a lot like Elijah, and his name was taken out of their midst. So from ancient times, out of the midst is a phrase of a person, a group being raptured off of planet Earth. So that's what we want you to understand. It's an idiom for the rapture. Now, if we go a step further, here is a quote from an ancient church father. Victor wrote a commentary on the book of Revelation. It's about 240 AD. It's the oldest commentary we have on the book of Revelation. He's commenting on this, and he's quoting about Revelation 15:1 about the plagues. And he first quotes it, saying, "I saw another great and wonderful sign, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is completed all the wrath of God." That's a quote, loose quote, out of Genesis 15. But he talks about that time period and says this, "These things shall be in the last time, when the church shall have gone out of the midst." So he's using that phrase again. So he's saying the out of the midst idiom that Paul mentioned in 2 Thessalonians 2:7 is referring to the time when the church has already left the planet or been raptured. Okay? So pulling these together, again, it actually says only he is holding back now until it comes out of the midst. A good way to paraphrase it would be, the mystery of lawlessness is already working, but the antichrist cannot be revealed until the church has been raptured. Again, that's a paraphrase, but that's exactly what we're talking about. When the church, it, comes out of the midst of the earth. So looking at these things, let's kind of recap this. So we have a restrainer that is holding back the antichrist in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7. And what he's saying here is it's the church. So this proves very conclusively that the rapture is what's holding back the antichrist. This has just been a short word study. So take this and a good study on what the 7-year tribulation is, the day of the Lord. Go back and read 2 Thessalonians 2, and it will make perfect sense. We'll continue with other small word studies as we go forward. Thank you.